You just need my proven formula to 10x your portfolio. Quit your job in 90 days with real estate. Let me show you my proven system to make millions. Sound familiar? Yeah. If you've been learning about real estate investing for more than 5 minutes on the internet, you have heard people selling the dream of real estate. And I do mean selling. So before you invest hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in real estate coaching and education, it is worth taking a pause to see if it is actually what you need. Because coaching can be a fantastic accelerator, but it's also a big investment. And I know. So if you're new here, hi, I'm Sabrina and I'm failing forward in real estate to build a more durable life. And since starting my journey, I have invested or wasted over $20,000 in real estate coaching, programs, education, and communities. Today, I'm going to walk through a framework that you can use to help you cut through the hype and see if a program is right for you. I've also created a comparison guide so that you can see program offerings side by side. That link is in the description. Okay, so here's the thing. Real estate investing coaching is everywhere. Everywhere. Flashy ads, bold claims, and promises of financial freedom if you just sign up today. And I'll admit it, I've bought in multiple times. But here's the thing that I've realized is that often I signed up for a new thing not from a place of clarity, but because I felt stuck. Deals weren't coming in, time was ticking by, I just felt stuck. And I thought, if I just sign up for this one more program, that's gonna have the missing piece. This is finally gonna allow me to break through. And so, in reality, I wasn't buying the program. I was buying hope. I was buying the feeling that I was doing something to avoid the feeling of frustration from not moving forward. And I want to be clear, coaching is not automatically bad. It can be a game changer, but only if you're getting the right thing at the right time for you. And so that's why I want to help you cut through the noise so that you can reflect and focus on what it is that you need, not what they're trying to sell you. So I've broken this down into 5 components with important questions that you need to ask yourself. And stick around to the end because there's a secret sauce that I think you should look for that not many programs offer. Okay, number 1 is the content focus. So this is just, what are they actually teaching? Is it wholesaling, flipping, buy and hold, creative strategies? What is the actual content of the program or education? And of course, you want to make sure that this lines up with your goals. Don't buy a program just because you like the person who is selling it, right? So for example, I really like Rob Abasolo. I think he's Rob Built or Ro Built on YouTube. I really like him. I like his vibe. I like his energy. I like his humor. But he's the short-term rental guy, and that's not what I do. And so while I might watch some of his content online, I'm not going to buy into his education or programs because it doesn't fit the strategy that I'm doing. Okay, so this one's pretty simple, but just make sure that the content offering actually aligns with what it is that you want to do. So in addition to the content, you also want to think about component number 2, which is duration. Is it a 30-day sprint? Is it a 6-month coaching engagement? Do you have lifetime access? You want to think about how does the duration align with what you think would be reasonable to reach the result of that program. So compressed timelines can be helpful to be able to take action, but they can also be unreasonable if you don't have, the kind of necessary prerequisites to really be able to kind of take off. So I've seen this in a few different kinds of ranges. So kind of short sprints, then kind of medium term would be, 3 to 6 months. And then you have longer term programs. And those tend to be a bit more community minded. If we're getting upwards of a year or more, that might be more community minded. A lot of courses and information only tend to have lifetime access. So once you buy, you get access to it forever. The other duration that I think is really interesting is actually a goal or an outcome. So in these programs, you're in the program until you reach a certain number of deals or you reach a certain milestone. So you want to look at how long do I need to stay in a program to get the result. Component number 3 is the format or the offer. Is this an education-only course? Is this one-on-one coaching? Is it small group? Is it large group? This format is really going to matter, right? Because is it self-paced, like, an education-only course that you can download or get access to? Or will you be, or is it a community or group environment, but it's really big and you'll just be another number, right? Will you just be kind of added to a school community or a Facebook group? So thinking about the actual format and the offer and how does that match up to what you need? Are you looking for a more high touch experience? Do you only need to just, learn a bit about a specific new strategy that you're unfamiliar with? Or are you looking for a group environment with some accountability? And so really thinking through what are the components of the format and the offer and seeing how that aligns with what you need and where you are right now. I've been in both small and large group environments, and to be honest, I don't care for them very much. I didn't get a lot of value from those calls. In my experience, how that went was that the kind of lead person really spent the beginning of the time doing some kind of presentation of some sort. And then there was this sort of just round robin question answering, which on the surface sounds really great. It's almost like you get one-on-one coaching, but for a lesser price because it's in a group. But what I found, honestly, was that those calls kind of went on endlessly, and the questions weren't related to what I was dealing with. And so I was just kind of sitting around waiting to be able to ask my question. Or if I didn't have a question, I didn't exactly know what to do with that time. But I think the other really big thing about that was there was no expectation from the members around how long is this meeting supposed to last. So quick updates from everyone, questions, that seems to have a more useful structure. But the kind of endless, I'll just be here until all of your questions are answered, can just lead to really long calls that often happen, they start later in the evening after people get off work. And so you're trying to juggle managing dinner and family coming home and nighttime routines, and this call is still going on. So I would just be mindful and ask questions around are there any kind of expectations? Are these calls an hour or do they just kind of go on forever, and decide which format is better for you? All right, now we're really starting to pull back the curtain. Component number 4 is who is actually leading you. So is this a one-man show? Do they have a small team? Is this a kind of big, more complex structure or organization? And the reason I want you to ask this question is because the one person seems really exciting. This one person who is doing their one-on-one coaching, they're leading the small group, they've got an online community, and they're doing their real estate, and they're, also talking about how they have all this flexibility for their hobbies and their families. But I want you to ask yourself, how can this one person do all of these things well? And from my experience, if they're still actively in their real estate business, like if they're actually still in the game of doing real estate, the coaching is inconsistent at best and just flat out fails to meet its promise at worst. I learned this the hard way. Picture this. It's my first flip. Me and my fiance at the time are literally living in an RV outside of the property. And the trucks from the permit office are coming up and down the street. And I'm panicking. We'd already started on some of the work and we weren't sure what was allowed and what wasn't. And I was terrified that we were going to have to rip it all out and start over. It was a couple of days before my birthday. It was a Wednesday. And we had to send a very good friend home who left his job to help us with this rehab. But we couldn't pay him while the project was down. And I was on the verge of tears. So I texted my coach, the coach I paid for one-on-one support from. And I asked, do you have time to talk? His response, I can on Friday. I'm teaching a 2-day event. And that was it. No encouragement, no quick check-in, no follow-up on Friday, nothing. I can't tell you how alone I felt in that moment. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I've never reached out to him again. Not when we got through the permit office, not when the rehab was done, not when the property sold. Never. That was the day I realized is that if you have a one-man show, their attention is split in too many directions. And all you will get are the scraps that are left over, and that is not what you paid for. So make sure that you figure out who is actually leading this. What is the structure behind the scenes? How do they get things done? And if it's just one person, proceed with caution. Okay, so that was my cautionary tale. But component number 5, this is the secret sauce. And what this is actual learning support. And honestly, this is what separates basic coaching programs from transformative experiences. Because the reality is simply having access to ask someone questions is not real learning support. That's a one-way street. If I can ask you questions, then it's limited by the questions that I ask and actually kind of getting over the hurdle to ask them in the first place. And this is often why so many people join coaching programs and they can just kind of fade into the background. Real learning support is a two-way street, which means that the program is structured to keep you engaged, focused, and moving forward. I used to be a college professor and I have a certificate in instructional design, and I am here to tell you that students don't succeed just because they're motivated. They succeed because the structure of the learning environment makes it more likely that they do so. And the same thing applies to real estate. I'll give you 2 examples from my life. So I'm currently in RPM, or Rental Property Mastery, led by Chad Carson or Coach Carson on the internet. And in that program, we have action teams. And so the way this works is that on a weekly cadence, a leader, who's not Chad, because they have a small group of leaders for each group, reaches out to my action team to ask about progress for the week towards our quarterly goal. The leader of my action team reaches out to our subgroup weekly to check in on our progress. Win, lose, or draw, we just need to report on what are the things that we've been doing or how did we get stuck in that week. You don't just disappear because someone actually notices when you don't show up. This is what real structured accountability looks like. I'll give you a second example. As I mentioned, I have a certificate in instructional design. And while I was going through that course, I was assigned a success advisor. And at one point when life was just kind of becoming too much and getting in the way, she reached out to me because she noticed that I wasn't making progress. That one email is all we needed to recalibrate, kind of refigure out what my timeline was going to be, because that was a program that did have a time limit. So you had to get the certificate done in a certain amount of time. And we reestablished my timeline so that I could complete all of the coursework and project tasks by the end of the program period. And so all it took is one person sending a message, an email to show that they actually care about your progress. That is a two-way street. That is learning support. It doesn't need to be grand or over the top. You simply need a reminder that someone cares about you and your goals. Now, this does not replace the need for you to actually do the work. Of course, no one can build your real estate empire or business or portfolio for you. But programs that are structured, designed to increase the probability of your success, those are the ones that I would hold in very high regard. Okay, bonus time. So component number 6 is probably the thing that you've been thinking about this entire video and wondering why I haven't talked about it yet, and that is the price. So I've broken this section down into tiers, and just to be honest, the cutoffs are somewhat arbitrary, but I think the general framework is helpful. The first tier is $0 up to $1,000. So in this category is usually where you'll find your courses, like information only, self-paced course experiences, maybe some small group, but usually at this level, it's on a subscription model. So that few $100s may be monthly. So over the course of a year, it might be over that $1,000 mark. So just be mindful of that subscription model and make sure that it doesn't become, just like a gym membership that you bought but don't use. If you're going to join that kind of program, just make sure that you are ready and willing to take actions so that that investment each month is actually something that's moving you forward. So the next tier after we get out of that 1,000 is about the 1,000 to 5,000K mark. And I think this is probably where the majority of us will sit. At this level, you get a variety of options. So usually there are courses, some small group experiences, access to one-on-ones, maybe some hot seat types of structures. This tier really has a lot to offer, and it's probably really good for people, particularly who are side hustling and who are not really trying to leap into real estate full time as a business, like before retiring. So I think this is a really nice tier where you can kind of, keep making these annual investments in your learning and in community building and really just taking the steps needed to move forward without severely breaking the bank. The last tier is what I would say is around 10K and up. And at this tier, it usually involves really high touch one-on-one coaching. And if it doesn't, I would be really skeptical. I've seen some programs that are not one-on-one coaching at this price point, but they offer lifetime access. And so, like I said before, duration is meaningful. So you'll have to weigh that out. But I think if you're paying this much money and someone is not directly responsible for you or that you can reach out to directly, I would proceed with caution, even if they do offer lifetime access. At this level, it would be my recommendation that you are not investing at this point unless you already have a real estate business or are serious about building one. And I mean a business. I mean acquisitions, marketing, dispo, CRMs, like the whole nine. Because at this level, what really is happening is that these programs, if they're dropped into existing systems that may have some inefficiencies or are just not optimized, that is when you get that 10x result. Because it's like you've got a machine going and now this program can be dropped in and fine tune and get support and feedback. And that is what is gonna make your machine really be able to get that growth. But if you don't have a machine to kind of drop this information strategy, coaching, support, systems, etc. into, it's really hard to see a return on such a big investment. Let me tell you how I almost got swept away by a program at this stage. In April of this year, I went to a 2-day workshop. I had already participated in their like month-long kind of overview sprint that was only a few $100s, and then they upsold me into the 2-day event. So $1,500, a plane ticket, and some hotel accommodations later, I was at this 2-day workshop. And at the 2-day workshop, that is where the real magic happened. They tried to sell me into a $30,000 coaching program for flipping and wholesaling. I had only done 2 flips at the time and never wholesaled a thing in my life. Mind you, this is $30,000 plus marketing costs, plus all the business systems that I didn't have because, as I mentioned, only 2 flips that I just kind of DIY'd together with duct tape, sweat, and dreams. And I would have been doing this while I had my full-time job, and the program was only 6 months long. Now, I eventually said no, but even knowing all of this, they sold me on this program hard. And the scariest thing is that in that moment, I was not thinking, this is absolutely ridiculous. Obviously, this program is not meant for a beginner, someone at the beginner stage like me. No. In that moment, as I hesitated and was trying to, say no politely, because mind you, we're in a face-to-face sales conversation at this workshop. And that coach said to me, I can tell that you're someone who's going to succeed. I can see it in you. And when I tell you, that made me feel so good. The only feelings that I had were feelings that I couldn't do it, that I was an imposter, that I would never be able to have any business that looked anything like any of the people who were at this event. And he told me that he could see it in me. And I wanted that so badly. I went back to my hotel room. I called my husband. I'm thinking of ways to cobble this money together to be able to buy into this program because I felt seen. I felt almost chosen to pay them $30,000 to help me build the business of my dreams. And that's the thing that when I think back on it, scares me. Is because, again, it was not from a place of clarity. It was not from actually weighing the pros and cons and what is the offering and am I in a position to actually be able to get this result at this cost in this 6-month time period. No. I almost bought hope that I would get unstuck, hope that this is going to be the thing that is going to actually move me forward, even though nothing about my situation seemed to match. Because I wasn't willing to quit my job, and I didn't have the business system at the time. But that clarity was not what I had in the moment. I had to fight all of those negative feelings and all of that doubt and all of the desire to actually break through, to just come to grips with my reality. This is not the right program at the right time for me. At the end of the day, coaching is supposed to be an amplifier. It should save you time, avoid mistakes, offer you new strategies, access to a network. But the wrong coaching at the wrong time can just be a lot of money and leave you worse off than it found you. So take a second and think, what do I need right now? Where is the gap in my knowledge, in my network, in my connection? And how do these programs or offerings match up to fill the gaps of what I need in this moment? Use these questions that we've gone through today and use the comparison guide in the description to be able to compare offerings side by side. Especially if you start looking at the higher ticket offerings, you are going to get on sales calls. They're going to call them like discovery calls or something like that, but they're sales calls. And that's where you are going to have your emotions pulled on to get you to invest, whether it's the right time or the right fit or not. So use the comparison guide in the description to really be able to compare offerings, to take a pause to see what it is that you need and who offers that actual service. So some people swear by coaching. Other people say it's all smoke and mirrors. Where do you sit? Coaching changed my life, or coaching is just other internet grifters trying to make a buck? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.